Let's call the meeting to order and take a pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Currently, we have to vote me in, so.
Okay, I motion to put Mr. McCarty in as chair. Second.
Ryan,
Here.
Sam Filippo,
Yes.
Mr. McCarty,
Currently, yes.
Carstensen,
Yes.
Madigan,
Yes.
Turner.
Yes.
I know of no objections, or does anybody else have any objections to Mr. Ryan proceeding online?
Not.
Right. Roll call.
Ryan,
Here.
Sam Filippo, here, McCarty,
Here.
Carstensen,
Here.
Madigan,
Here.
Turner,
Yes.
Chairwoman Henning is.
Okay, announcements and correspondence.
No announcement, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Do we have anybody listed over there on the? Nothing?
Nope.
Approval of January 3rd, 2024 Planning and Zoning Board Meeting Minutes as presented.
I make a motion to approve.
A second.
Roll call.
Ryan,
Abstain.
Sam Filippo,
Abstain.
McCarty,
Yes.
Carstensen,
Yes.
Madigan,
Yes.
Turner.
Yes.
We have no public comment at this time. Old business, EZB 2320, consideration of special use for an electronic message board to be located at property commonly known as Antioch Community High School, located at 1133 Main Street, PIN number 0217200002. Continue from the December 6th meeting. Mr. Garrigan, you're on.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let the record reflect this as a continuation of a public hearing pursuant to public notice in accordance with state statutes. And this matter comes back before you for a request for a special use and variance. As I recall, the high school was requesting a variance and special use for EMB sign. There was extensive discussion at the last meeting. Staff did kind of go through the findings of fact at that meeting. Generally with regards to proposed sign, as you know, there are certain findings of facts for special use and special required findings of facts for variance. I will very briefly go through those findings of fact. I think in some substance, our biggest concern, obviously, at the last meeting was the proposal. And I'll walk you through the proposal in your packet. There is a proposal with regards to relief. So just to highlight, the applicant is requesting two forms of relief or variance. As you know, all EMB signs do require special use in Antioch. Secondly, the applicant is asking for a variance. The basis for the variance is the proposed EMB sign that you can see on the display. It exceeds 25% of the actual square footage of the overall monument sign. The monument sign has been there for many, many years, has not changed, but the high school did come through the process last year, changed out the EMB sign. So that's what we're here before we can sign off formally on the sign. The high school has to get a special use. We did sign off technically actually on this permit for the EMB sign, just for the record. Staff did, so it's not per se an illegal sign, but the applicant can't, if they want to use the sign EMB, they need relief as part of the special use. Second part is a variance. The variance, the basis for the variance, again, is the applicant is looking to incorporate some graphics that do not comply or do not meet section, if you actually look at the EMB language, there's specific language that limits all EMB signs in Antioch to either white or red lettering on a black background. That's generally what you see consistently for the most part. If an applicant is looking for relief, they need a variance. So that's the basis for the variance this evening. Again, the applicant, this is the actual proposed sign, took this evening. which is generally consistent with our ordinance. It's basically white lettering on a dark background. So the actual sign itself is generally consistent with the terms of our sign ordinance. In addition, it's my understanding that the sign is turned off at 7 p.m. every night, consistent with what you guys were, with regards to what the planning commission was looking for. Now, the applicant is proposing the variance, 35 proposed messages. I'll walk you through that. So that is, again, a request of relief. So you have in your packet all 35. I did not incorporate all 35 graphics in the PowerPoint, but I do believe you have all 35 proposed graphics in your as part of your packet. The applicant is requesting an opportunity that basically within the EMB sign to actually have the opportunity to highlight certain holidays throughout the year. There'll be 35 days, I believe, with 35 different graphic messages. Just kind of walking you through this. There'll be obviously a New Year Day, Valentine's Day. You have a full comprehensive list of all the proposed holidays, Groundhog Day, etc. This is just kind of to give the planning commission a flavor of what the applicant is proposing as part of the variance of the proposed EMB sign. Now, with respect to the findings of facts, just for the record, I'll walk you through the findings very briefly for the special use. It's important to look at the context that we already discussed. The context of this site is surrounded by commercial to the south. There's obviously commercial development on Route 173 to the south. There is also commercial development as part of the Town Square project and McDonald's and a couple other commercial businesses on the corner of 173. So across from the high school is clearly commercial in nature. But the actual use begins to change and it transforms from a commercial corner into a residential character. As you well know, within approximately 200 feet of this proposed EMB sign are single-family homes, actually very historic. Single-family homes is really kind of the start of our historic downtown. As you move north away from the high school campus, you'll see us all on the west side and also the east side, single-family historic houses that predate going back to the 19th century. So as we've also discussed, it's important, critically important, to try to preserve the character of the Main Street historic area. When we drafted the EMB sign, I know at the last meeting there was a lot of discussion about the history of drafting a very restrictive EMB sign. That was what the village board was looking for at that time. And it was based on the historic character of the downtown. So the applicant, the first special use, the first finding of special use will not be injurious enjoyment of other properties. So with respect, it's kind of a twofold analysis. With respect to the existing condition, i.e. the sign as reflected in the PowerPoint presentation or its current condition, staff believes that proposed EMB sign as currently operated is generally consistent with our ordinance, which it is. It's generally consistent with the character of the area. There's nothing we believe that would show that the proposed current configuration would have a directly negative impact on the properties to obviously across the street, but more importantly, the residential properties to the north. We generally believe that this proposed sign that is as in current condition is, again, not only consistent with what we allow, but generally consistent with the character of the area. And there may be an opportunity to continue to work with the applicant to refine the intensity of these LED. I know some residents, or I've heard some complaints about the intensity of this white lettering. I apologize. The white lettering here. There may be an opportunity to continue to work with the applicant to refine that. As you all know, we do limit basically EMB signs at night to be around 40% of what the actual intensity of light is during the day. So there may be an opportunity to continue to work with the applicant. Now, the twofold analysis with respect to the proposed 35 graphics, we do not believe that allowing those 35 graphics would generally be consistent, clearly not only with the ordinance, but with the character of the area. We believe that potentially that allowing these 35 graphics on each day during these holidays potentially could have a negative impact on the single family homes, which again are approximately 200 feet to the north. So we do have concern about whether that's consistent with the character of the area. This was a second finding of fact, the establishment of special use would not impede the normal and orderly development of the area. Again, as I've already outlined, across the street is a commercial area, commercial inherently or in its very nature. But again, there's residential areas. So again, the sign in its current condition, we generally believe it not only conforms with the current regulations, but also generally consistent with the character of the Main Street corridor. And what more importantly, what we have allowed. So also important to look at precedent. What has this commission supported? What has the village board generally supported as it relates to EMB signs along Main Street? But again, a twofold analysis. With respect to the proposal with regards to 35 graphics, we do not believe that potentially that along that would have a potential negative impact on the trend of development along the corridor. We are trying to, again, restore the historic character of the area. We're trying to attract commercial development that is reflective and sensitive to the historical character of downtown Antioch. And there's a question of whether these 35 proposed graphic signs would be consistent with that goal. So that concludes our analysis for special use. Again, twofold analysis. We believe that the applicant has met the required findings of facts for the EMB sign in its current condition, but we do not believe the applicant has met the required special use findings of facts for the proposed 35 graphics. Now, with regards to the variance, very briefly, the variance, as I've already highlighted, is to allow the applicant to first to have a sign that exceeds the 25% limitation. Going through the findings of facts for a variance, first finding of fact is the variance is in harmony with general purposes and intents of the zoning ordinance. Again, the current sign configuration we believe is generally consistent with the character of the Main Street corridor. We don't believe there's anything which inherently negative or that this proposed sign itself with regards to square feet has an inherent negative impact on the adjacent properties. With regards to number two, the plight of the owners due to unique circumstances, there's nothing inherently unique about this proposal. There's really no inherent hardship as part of this. If in fact the applicant was denied this requested variance as it relates to the proposed 35 graphics, they could continue to use this EMB sign, the special use. Obviously, they could propose continue to use their signage. Most importantly, they could still continue to operate their high school as an educational facility. The number third finding is the fact the property cannot yield a reasonable use only under the conditions allowed by the zoning ordinance. Again, even in fact, if this commission did deny the requested variance as it relates to the 35 graphics, we believe that the applicant would still be allowed, subject to approval of this evening of the special use variance, to still be allowed to use this sign in this general configuration. So denying the applicant's request to be allowed to use the sign incorporating 35 specific graphics during the holidays would not constitute in a way any prohibition of continues to allow this use this facility as an educational facility. Number four, if the variance is granted, will not alter the essential character of the locality. Again, a twofold analysis, allowing the applicant to have a sign which exceeds the 25% limitation. We do not believe that would have a negative impact on the existing character of the area. But on the other hand, allowing the applicant to incorporate 35 very bright, very intense graphics during the holidays or 35 times a year, we believe would potentially have a negative impact on single family homes to the north, would not be consistent with the character of the area, and it would not be consistent with the historic character and sensitivity that we continue to try to promote for downtown Antioch. So based on that long analysis, the staff is making a favorable recommendation this evening of the proposed special use for this property with 4 stipulations. We will continue to request that the applicant be limited to the hours of 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. in its current configuration. Secondly, as it relates to the variance, we move that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the variance to allow the applicant to have a sign that exceeds 25% of the overall proposed EMB sign itself. And twofold, we are recommending denial of the requested variance this evening or the requested proposed 35 colored images that are incorporated in your package. So with that, I'll be conclude my staff report, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Okay. Thank you. Let's go for comments, but when we do our comments, let's start with the 25% variance, and then we'll go into the special use. So just for our comments from the board, we'll start with that.
Mike, that work for you? That's fine. Okay.
All right, comments on the variance with the 25% size of the sign. Mr. Ryan.
None at this time.
San Filippo.
I don't have anything.
No comments.
Ms. Madigan.
No comments.
Mr. Turner.
No comments.
And I have no comments either, so that is taken care of. All right, let's go with comments now on, yeah, that would be good.
I'll make a motion.
Sounds good.
I'll second.
Well, I don't need it first.
Sure. Oh,
I'll make a motion to, approve the Antioch Community High School PZB 23-20 for the electronic message board sign exceeding the 25% and approving a variance for that specific piece, with the conditions outlined in the proposal from staff.
and I will second.
All right, roll call.
Ryan,
Yes.
Sanfilippo,
Yes.
McCarty,
Yes.
Carstensen.
Yes.
Madigan,
Yes.
Turner.
Yes.
All right, the next set of comments and or questions are on the special use with the graphics, the 35 graphics that have been presented to the board. Mr. Ryan.
None at this time.
Ms. Sanfilippo.
I don't have any comments.
Ms. Carstensen.
I just want to say that I agree with staff's recommendation and interpretation of our current plan for the village. And, I mean, it's very bright. I'm worried like additional images are gonna make this really hard for residents, so.
Ms. Madigan.
So I drive by the sign every day to and from work, and obviously when it's light outside, it's not as bad, but when it's dark and you're driving on, you're heading north on 83, it is blinding. So I would agree, with staff's recommendation to not allow these, because I can only imagine, I mean, that's just white lettering. I could only imagine if there were, other graphics and it's moving. I think it would be very distracting for drivers, and if kids are crossing streets or adults, whatever. I agree with Sam.
Yeah, I would agree with my fellow commissioners here. I would just like to say, just for the record, if I feel like the village board, this board before my time, and staff spent a ton of time on EMB signs within this town. So if, in my opinion, or my recommendation is if there is a path here where the staff and or the village board would like to open this back up for, let's say, schools or special use case scenarios to give us some parameters and guardrails, I'd like to hear or see that. But other than that, I would agree tonight with my fellow commissioners here. So that's all.
And we've stated that in the past.
Yeah.
I think, especially Andrew, if it has to do with the education of our children, I don't know that we need to be, advertising every holiday on these signs, but I do think that, things like graduation and some other educational, related activities on a very limited, and of course that would be up to staff whether or not they wanted to entertain that, but the way it's presented with the 35 graphics and the way our ordinance is written now, I would have serious concerns too. So just opening a can of worms for everybody who has an EMD sign.
Can's been opened. My comments would be, we asked for some photometrics on this or something, reading how bright this was going to be at the nearest resident and to the north. And did we get anything?
I know when I talked to the technological coordinator for this, I believe they have a light meter. With regards to the existing sign, they're going to do some measurements, but they provided no numbers. And specifically, they provided no numbers as part of this proposed, the actual request for a variance for the actual 35 graphics.
And I kind of have a problem with that because again, previously we've discussed, zero light emissions, especially in the evening to offend other people. And we also have comments and a written letter from a neighbor that was having problems.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, and that's why I think staff has made a recommendation of denial for the proposed 35 graphics. But I can only say what we consistently, guys, as we know, precedent, how we handle other cases, how we historically have handled cases. We have, we have ordinances. There's nothing specifically in our ordinance that does require photometrics. We historically have never required photometrics for
Right.
other EMB signs. So I'm trying to be consistent, but also be sensitive to your, I think, legitimate concerns about the proposed intensity of the light. And that's why I think staff does not support the requested more, much more defined bright graphics that are being proposed, because that clearly, I think, would not be consistent with the literal language of the ordinance. But actually, the applicant was going to bring some actual measurements, but they've not provided those numbers of the existing sign.
Anybody here from the applicant? If you'd like to, state your name and your address, and we need to have you sworn in.
You mind my address?
Your name and your address.
My name is Ken Balenchuk. I'm Facility Director for District 117. I can give you my address. It's 1133 Main Street in Antioch.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth? Can you please raise your right
I
hand?
sure
Sorry.
can.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I sure.
Thank you.
Proposed with the light you're talking about measurements and stuff like that. That'd be something my technology guy, his dad's ill, so he was not here tonight. So I'll find out more information on that, on the light meters and so forth. But I can give you a thing that sign can be adjusted down to minimal lighting. So it can be adjusted. So like you said, if you're seeing it's right now, we can adjust it down to where it's much better feel, due to the fact that the time differences and the clouds and so forth always change the daylight savings time. So it does change. So we can adjust that down to make the brightness. And as you say, during the day, it's normal, you just drive by and so forth. We appreciate it. We just put on the graphics that Michael asked, what could you put on? What could you do? So we just threw out everything we could, and what it might be, we can showcase the school or anything to that effect. What our main things would be like graduation. Hey, congratulations, this one's a valedictorian, salutatorian, so forth. And you can actually put a nice, photometric, picture up there or something like that. Not moving. We can move. This thing can do a lot of things, but we do a solid coloring and reduce the lighting definitely in the day, in the nighttime. Be happening. If anybody has any questions, I started the whole project. I got the vendor in. We did all this. I did the zoning. We did everything with Michael and everything to get everything going. But I'm not the technology guy. I'm just the buildings guy who makes the everything run. We spent a lot of money on this.
And unfortunately, we're reacting. We're not planning.
Yeah.
So we're in the reactive mode now. So
Right.
we're trying to find out what you have for your highest brightness and your lowest brightness
Yes.
based on photometrics to help give us a guideline for this, because we've never had a sign that bright producing the light straight out to the 90 degrees.
Right.
All of our stuff that we do for lighting is downward and not protruding past the actual property that is having the lighting produced from.
Correct.
So I'd like to see some measurements on that.
Sure.
So that we can see what the highest is,
And what we-
medium, and the lowest. So that we have a range and we could say, okay, stay within the medium and lowest. And then obviously you're turning off at 7 PM.
7 PM, it shuts down. It turns into, you actually see like a red tinge to it. It's on, but it's gone. Like you can't even see it. So, and then if you just see the Antioch Community High School, it's on the top. That's just lettering and so forth. But the sign itself is dead at 7, turns back on just about after 7.
Okay, that's all I have for comments. Anything else?
Can I make one more comment? So just a thought here. Would it, just listening to you, would it make sense? Obviously, there's a ton of technology behind it. I'm
Yeah.
sure it can do everything, right? Would it make sense to potentially dim it down to that 40% mark at dusk? You know, it can follow when the sun's setting. So then from sunset to 7 PM, it is dimmed down. That would help, right?
Sure.
It goes into a program. You can program anything you want, and then it can hit that certain mark. Like we shut it down, it can drop right down at a certain time. So you tell us where. I mean, like I said, obviously we'd have to walk at 4 o'clock. I think sometimes it's dark
Right.
around here. So,
Right.
and so you're later to go to bed. So yes, it'd have to drop down. We'd have to watch that daylight and see how it goes, but we could just drop it down maybe a little sooner than what we think it's going to get dark out and see how it adjusts. And we can actually work with the village on if there's any issues.
I kind of look at this as two separate issues. So the graphics is one that we're addressing today. And then I guess I would direct the high school to work with staff and make sure that they're at levels. Sure.
With regards, I know this is the second time, and I think you raised legitimate questions about photometrics, and it's again for precedent. So as new signs, are we just talking about EMB signs? I mean, like as an example, we have the new Walmart is reimaging all their signs, actually very new large signs. Would it be appropriate to modify the ordinance and request all signs to have complete photometric plans? Because obviously signs, as you know, obviously the McDonald's sign across the street is not directed, I think there's maybe a confusion about our lighting standards
I
in
agree.
parking lots versus signage. I mean, signage by its definition is not directed down 90 degrees. So
Agree.
should-
Agreed 100%. And the only reason I brought this up for photometrics is it's the only way I can measure it
Right.
and that it's affecting someone else off site.
Which is fine. It makes sense. The question is, again, we always try to be consistent with all applicants. So should all applicants be required to come in with photometric?
I don't see that a backlit sign is going to give, that kind of lighting off of it that's going to affect other people. Plus, our timeframes, and most people turn things off at certain times and so on and so forth.
I'm just trying to get clarification. That's all.
Yeah, I think it's LEDs because they are direct light going right out. That might be more prudent to look at that.
So all EMB signs potentially. Because
If it's in a commercial setting, like, Walmart, that whole area, there's no residents anywhere around.
Okay.
So I don't see a reason for that to be a situation. But if you have residents within, like, I don't know, 250 feet, then I think that that's prudent to back up that person and at least say, hey, you should do this. We need to see how this is going to affect your neighbors. That would be, a very good way of looking at it.
Okay, very good. That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I'm looking for a motion on the special use for the graphics.
I'll make a motion.
Ms. Maggie?
So I'll make a motion for PZB 23-20, the use of the electronic board for the purpose of the graphic designs, the 35 options, to not be recommended for approval.
So did
Recommend denial.
a second?
First and a second. Roll call?
Ryan,
Yes.
Sanfilippo,
Yes.
McCarty,
Yes.
Parkinson.
Yes.
Madigan,
Yes.
Turner.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. Another.
Yeah, for the fire station, Mr. McCarty. PZB 23
No, no, no.
Right.
We still have a third.
Right. We approved one variance and recommended denial of the other variance, but there is a special use. As you know, all E and B signs require special use.
Am I missing that? one?
So that
Um,
was with the staff's recommendation, the compliance of the village engineer, Antioch Fire District, the hours, if you guys want to change limiting those.
For stipulation.
Yeah,
Those were. Go ahead.
So if that's what you want to do, we could just make a motion with the stipulations as recommended by staff to
Right.
approve the general special use permits for the electronic sign.
yes.
Yes, motion. for
Make a motion for that?
PZB
Yes.
23-20 special use, with the 4 recommended items from staff.
Second,
We have a first and a second, roll call?
Ryan,
Yes.
Sanfilippo,
Yes.
McCarty,
Yes.
Carstensen,
Yes.
Madigan,
Yes.
Turner.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. On to the next item on the agenda, PZB 2324, consideration of special use and a variance for electronic message board sign, must be electronic message board sign night. To be located at the property commonly known as Antioch Fire Station 1, located at 835 Holback Drive, pin number 0208 302003 and 0208 302004. Continued from the January 3rd, 2024 meeting.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let the record reflect this is a public hearing in accordance with state statutes, all applicable ordinances. Mr. Chairman, this matter comes before you this evening for a request for an E and B sign for the property commonly known as 835 Holbeck, the Antioch Fire Station number 1. As you recall, recently we did approve a new site plan. The applicant is starting their new renovations of that fire station. As part of those renovations, they are proposing a EMB sign. As you all know, all EMB signs do require special use, and there is also variance. I'll walk you through the special use and the variance. The property is currently zoned a transitional core. The applicant is proposing a new EMB sign. Specifically, they're proposing, as you know, there is an existing monument sign right now with a message board. They are proposing to construct a new monument sign with a new EMB sign. In fact, they're proposing, because of the reconfiguration of the front area along Orchard, they're proposing to move existing sign, or actually construct a new sign approximately 40 feet east of the current location of the existing monument sign. That sign will have to be removed because of the new configuration of the front parking spaces. As you recall, you actually reviewed the proposed site plan for the new modifications being made to Fire Station number 1. There'll be a new parking lot there with angle parking, and that requires the relocation of their monument sign. As part of their monument sign, they are requesting an EMB sign. As I've already outlined, all EMB signs require special use. So I'll very briefly go through the special use findings, the facts. The first finding, special use will not be injurious to use and enjoyment of other properties. Again, the proposed EMB sign will be generally consistent with the existing electronic message board of the Fire Station number 1. Moreover, the existing sign is a monument sign. The proposed new sign is reflected in the PowerPoint here. While will be constructed out of block, it will be a monument sign. The proposed EMB sign, which will be 18 feet, will basically be on top of the masonry monument sign. The masonry monument sign, as you can see, as reflected here, will actually identify a Fire Station number 1, and then there will be an EMB sign on top of that existing block monument sign as proposed. The overall square footage of the monument sign is approximately 37 square feet. The applicant is requesting, again, 18 square feet. As you know, we limit signs to 25% of the. So based on that, based on the ordinance, the applicant would only be allowed to have a 9 square foot EMB sign. And that's the basis for the variance. They are requesting a relief. They have a slightly larger EMB sign consistent with the drawings that are before you. But with there's a special use, there's nothing to indicate this proposed EMB sign as proposed by the fire station, fire district would have any negative impact on the adjacent properties. As you well know, across the street is the plaza. The area is very commercial. The property's adjacent to the Antioch Police Station. There are some parking lots to the area. So this property is not immediately adjacent to residential. There is some senior housing located to the west. But this proposed EMB sign shouldn't have no negative impact on the properties to the south. Second finding of fact that's required, establishment of special use will not be immediate or normal and orderly development. Again, there's nothing to indicate that allowing this fire station to have a new EMB sign, a new monument sign, would have any negative impact. As we well know, we'll continue to see a new interest along Orchard Street. We do have long-term plans to see redevelopment of portions of Orchard Street. And therefore, we do not believe that this proposed monument sign would have any negative impact or impede that future potential development along Orchard Street. Now, with regards to the variance, there's certain findings of facts. I've already outlined the basis for the variance. Is the applicant's he's seeking relief to have a larger EMB sign. Again, they would be limited to a maximum 9 square foot sign. They're proposing an 18 square foot EMB sign as part of the overall 37 square foot monument sign. First, finding of fact, the variance is in harmony with the general purposes and intent of zoning ordinance. There's nothing as it relates to this. Proposed EMB sign is located in the village's downtown sign district. Historically, by ordinance, we do not allow EMB signs with the exception of civic uses. This is a governmental use, i.e. a fire station, so that would be consistent with the ordinance. There's nothing to indicate that this proposed sign itself would in fact be inconsistent with the general purposes of the zoning ordinance itself. Secondly, second finding, the plight of the owner is due to unique circumstances and strict enforcement of zoning ordinances would create practical difficulties. Again, this EMB sign, and I'll probably allow the chief to provide you some additional illumination of this, but this sign is really for communication, critical communication for the community. Unlike the previous applicant, this sign will be used for communications by the fire district to the general public as part of their overall goals and purposes of the fire district. So I'll allow the chief to maybe kind of walk you through how this EMB sign is being proposed, but very consistent with the existing message board that currently exists itself. The third finding of fact is the property cannot yield reasonable if permitted under the conditions. Well, obviously, the applicant would obviously be allowed to continue to use operations of this site for a fire station, regardless of whether an EMB sign was permitted or not. This is a very challenging finding of fact to comply with. Most applicants cannot meet this, but there's a question of whether the applicant obviously could use his property. Even if the EMB sign was denied, nothing would prohibit them from using this property as a fire station, but clearly allowing a new EMB sign would be more consistent with their long-term goals of having continued better communication with the community itself. So it's clearly, again, consistent with the district's goals as it relates to communication and just providing more communication to the general public. The fourth finding, the variance granted will not alter the essential character. Again, there's nothing to reflect. The overall sign itself is a monument style. It has constructed out of block. There's nothing to indicate that the proposed EMB sign of the actual fire station would have any type of negative impact on the character of Orchard Street. More importantly, as part of this relocation, the applicant has submitted a landscape plan, which you have in your packet. They'll be adding extensive new ground landscape around this EMB monument sign. I've already highlighted in my staff report all the additional plants are being added. But as you well know, as you'll recall, as part of this overall site plan reconfiguration of the Fire Station 1, extensive new landscaping is being proposed along Orchard Street, which will be substantially more than currently exists. There's going to be 3 or 4 new trees, ornamental plantings, so there'll be extensive landscaping in front of the actual proposed fire station's renovations. So there will be actually a new beautification of this site. So the staff was very supportive of the applicant's previous site plan proposal. We believe that will improve the overall character of Orchard Street when a fire district is able to complete their proposed renovations, which I believe are starting this currently or this spring. So with our recommendations this evening, we are making a favorable recommendation this evening of special use with the 2 conditions as outlined in my staff report. We're also making a favorable recommendation of the variance to allow an 18 square foot EMB sign. And with that, I'll conclude my staff report.
Thank you, Mike. Chief, would you like to make any comments or do you want to wait until we're done with ours? Okay. Mr. Ryan, any comments or questions?
None at this time.
Ms. Sanfilippo?
So it's a double sided, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and so we're using both sides for the messaging?
Correct.
Okay,
It looks very similar to, oh,
We need to swear in.
swear it.
sorry.
Can you raise your right hand?
John Coke Ferry, 35 Holbeck Drive,
Please,
Antioch.
you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
You bet. So it's very similar looking to the one we have, but more modern.
Right,
So
right.
you're able to see it coming from the east or coming from the west.
Okay, and it's moving to the corner,
It moves about, I don't think it's.
further from
It's about 30, so it goes to the
clo-
west.
closer to the apart. So this is where I was confused because I see it's here on the corner of Orchard, but they kept saying east, but it's really moving
Moves
west,
to the west.
moving to the west. So like approximately how many feet is that to like the apartments there? Is there any concern? Like, I don't know, how many feet is any residential within where this sign would sit?
Can we clarification on this? The sign is actually moving to the east side of the property, closer to the police department. It's moving to the east.
Okay.
So can I liberty to walk to
Yeah, yes,
Please.
please. I'm just trying to figure out where this is going.
the current sign right around the area?
Right.
Our sugar maple, not sugar maple, silver maple right here,
Mhm.
sign right here.
And that's forward facing. It's not two sided. Forward facing.
I think so. This is side,
It's not four-facing.
sideways,
It's currently sideways.
but is it double-sided? No, right now?
I can only see the one side of where I was standing, but
Chief, is the current sign that you have double-sided or is it
Yes.
single-sided?
Double-sided. It's almost like a ribbon.
Okay,
that runs.
yeah, I mean, I drive past it all the time, so I'm very familiar with what it is now.
That could be. I think it's very. I thought I didn't believe it was wrong, but
Yeah, and then on the questions, but the sign that you move further away.
Closer to the senior,
no.
closer to the police station.
Which has apartments on the other side and a residence that's right next to it. Okay. The current sign, the face of it is facing south and
East
north.
west.
It's this way with the. So.
The message itself, you're able to read it from east and west. So I guess
right,
its orientation lengthwise is north to south.
Okay, all right. So the same as the sign that's being proposed.
Yes.
yes.
Should I ask a question?
Please.
Hi, Chief, how are you?
Excellent.
So the sign runs perpendicular to the street, correct?
Yes.
As the old one does, correct?
Correct.
Would be of a similar sign, correct? A similar nature of use, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. It's to get a better public safety message out. As we get the one now, it's in a ribbon, so we don't feel we get the full message as you drive by. What we're trying to do is give a more readable space to have several lines to get our message out.
All right, so I ain't that smart, so you're gonna have to walk me through this. What's a ribbon?
It's just a line of letters and your message.
And how's the other one gonna be different than a ribbon?
It's more of a
It's bigger.
big,
Okay,
it's more of a, what I look at is more of a TV screen,
got it,
you
okay,
know, similar to what your other electronic message boards are.
This person.
got it, okay. All right, so does that help with the record, Mr. Gary? All right, thanks.
Any more questions, Ms. Sanfilippo?
No,
Nothing.
Ms. Madigan?
Just one, it'll just be verbiage, graphics, what's going to be part of that.
I didn't envision anything other than our life safety messages that we put out. And so,
Awesome.
you know, we don't envision flames or, you know,
I mean,
burning
for-
buildings or,
For clarification, it would be operating under our sign
We're not
ordinance.
advertising fires.
We'll make a bear.
Okay.
I don't think we have to at the paper.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay,
Mr. Tur-
good.
That's all I have.
Mr. Turner.
Yeah, as long as we're operating under the current ordinance,
Yes.
I don't have any further questions.
I have a few. So same thing with the light and the same thing with it's producing, we moved it farther away from the senior building, which doesn't particularly have a lot of windows on that side of that building anyway. The apartments over here, I know that I've received a lot of complaints from the they're almost like row houses or townhouses that are there from the light coming from the new parking lot from the police department. So this is going to add a little more light going that direction, a little closer to them. Are you having any hours of operation for your sign?
We didn't envision any, but, you know, again, we're open to getting our message out. You know, what are our restrictions? It's new. I don't know what the sign can do. That's way over my head. In technology, I like to say I'm paying people to do all this.
Okay,
And I'll stand before you and answer the questions of what the purpose is.
sure,
It's my understanding these signs can do just about anything
right.
that you want them to do. You can dim them. You can, I think, superintendent of grounds, you know, talked about that.
I would suggest that the fire department work with staff to make sure that we limit the exposure to that going towards that direction or both directions for nighttime use. I'm not saying that we should, you know, shut it off at 7, but maybe definitely go down to the 25% range on its visibility of brightness at night.
And again, at night, I don't think it has to be all that bright. It's dark out.
Sure,
That's, I mean, that just makes.
that's my point.
sense.
I just don't want to add any more intrusive light going that, you know, east or west for the older residences that are in that area. Just work closely with staff because if we do get complaints, obviously you're going to be hearing about a mic and. All right.
With our district, if we find a light, if there's any complaints, we address it.
Do any,
I've not received any complaints.
No,
Right.
because it sometimes doesn't work and it's not very bright. If you could see how it's wired, you'd laugh.
all right,
I think it's run off speaker wire into a computer that,
I hear you.
and that one will turn off. We're just waiting as demolition is started. Any given time, we're gonna lose power. You've seen the generator light. There's a little red light that flashes in front of the building. That's our generator going on as they cut the power on into the building.
All righty. Do we have any other comments from the board? Looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve PZB 23-24, consideration of a special use and variance for an AMB to be located at the property commonly known as Antioch Fire Station Number 1, located 835 Holbeck Drive, pin 02-08-302-003 and 02-08-302-004, continued from the January 3rd meeting.
Second.
I'll second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Roll
With,
call.
with the stipulations listed in the report. The 2 stipulations.
You agree with your second?
I agree with my second.
All right. Roll call.
Ryan,
Yes.
Sanfilippo,
Yes.
McCarty,
Yes.
Carstensen,
Yes.
Madigan,
Yes.
Turner.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Chief. Okay. New business. PCB 24-01, consideration of annexation of preliminary final plat for unincorporated parcels located at 22950 West Illinois Route 173, pin number 02161-00020 and pin number 02161-00021. Staff?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let's just record, this is a public hearing being heard in accordance with these statutes, all applicable ordinances. Mr. Chairman, this matter comes before you this evening. Before I start the actual formal, actual analysis of the actual proposal, I should give you some context. The village currently is working on a tax increment finance district. As you well know, based on the Kia proposal, we are seeing a real interest in new major development for what we commonly refer as a marketplace or Brown LLC property. That is the 82 acres of what's being discussed this evening, but it's basically an 82-acre site on 173. At one time, before the downturn in 2008, there was a major 500,000 square foot retail center being proposed for that site. And obviously because of economic recession or downturn in 2008, that proposal never did proceed. So since that date, the owner has owned the property and has been looking for new and commercial end users development of the property itself. To provide additional interest in the property, consistent with what we've done before, the village did retain SB Friedman to proceed with called tax increment finance district for this 82-acre site. In addition, there's some additional properties. There's probably 159 acres in the proposed terms of the proposed TIF. Also includes the Petty property. The Petty property is just south of this site. It's approximately 12 acres. It's adjacent to the Lake County Forest Reserve. And that property is also included this proposed TIF. Actually, the actual TIF plan was just filed with the village clerk on Friday. I'm working with village council to start the process. We'll probably start the process at the next board meeting. But I just wanted to give you context because it's really the factual basis why this proposed annexation and preliminary and final plat is coming before the planning commission this evening, because these are all TIF requirements. With regards to the annexation, as you well know, the overall property, 82 acres, is annexed into the village of Antioch. But as we worked with SB Freeman, we discovered there were two small strips of property that still appear to be located in unincorporated Lake County. It was staff's belief that this was a mistake, that the overall, all the property was annexed. We had our engineers, HR Green, review legal descriptions. They could not verify by the legal descriptions whether these two strips were in. And unfortunately, when the original annexation of this proposed property came back in 2007, for some reason, a plat of annexation was not filed. Now we require what we call plats of annexation, which basically are just as a map like this. So to show all the property was annexed. For some reason, no plat of annexation was incorporated as part of the annexation. So it appears as a housekeeping matter that these two strips that I'm going to talk about are still located in unincorporated Lake County. Obviously, we can't complete a tax increment finance district for this property if the property is not located in the village of Antioch. So this is more procedural housekeeping. The first aspect, the first request this evening is to basically annex these two small little strips as you have in your staff report and actually submittals. It's hard to see on the screen, but these are two very narrow strips. I believe there's their access. I think there are access easements. I think they're driveways, which provide access to some of the property owners adjacent to this property. So we are requesting an annexation of these two strips into the village of Antioch so we can complete the TIF. This is a requirement. SB Freeman said, obviously, we have to annex these properties before the village board approves the tax increment finance district for this proposed marketplace property. So staff is making a recommendation this evening that obviously it's located in the village of Antioch. I mean, surrounded by the village of Antioch, literally. It's in the village's facility planning area. It's obviously within the village's comp plan. It's within our village's future planning areas. We could, factually, we could annex this by force because obviously it's less than 60 acres. It's surrounded by the village of Antioch, but we're working with the applicant on future development. The applicant did agree to obviously to expedite this. So this evening we are requesting a formal annexation of these two narrow strips. So all of the property, which is commonly known as Brown LLC property, all 82 acres, is located within the village of Antioch. So that is the first motion that's before you this evening. In addition, in accordance with the Illinois statute regulating tax increment finance districts. It's fairly complicated, but if in fact an area, a parcel of property is being farmed or under cultivation for the past 5 years, the statute requires that it requires it to be subdivided. So we are coming in with a request that preliminary and final plat this evening for to comply with the state statute procedurally. The applicant is requesting really just a basic subdivision of the property. What they're proposing is first to subdivide. The first lot would be Brown Road. As you know, as part of the Kia development, there's actually the final engineering for Brown Road has been submitted. It's very close to being approved. The first lot would be dedicated to the village of Antioch. That lot 1, which is along the eastern perimeter of the property, would become Brown Road. There's a future right-of-way there that would provide access not only to the Kia dealership, but future access to this overall development, and also provide additional access to the residents which are located behind there. There are several residents which are unincorporated with Antioch, which currently get their access through the existing Brown Road. As when Brown Road is improved, there'll be a new configuration there, provide continued access to those residents in the future. But the first lot, number 1, would be Brown Road. Lot number 2 is the Kia dealership. Actually, the applicant did close. Mr. Scarpelli actually owns lot 2 now, which is and actually are going to be contain the future Kia dealership. You'll recall that this commission recommended approval. The village board did approve the site plan for a new $8 million Kia dealership. They will be hopefully breaking ground within the next 30 to 45 days. You'll see movement out there very quickly with the start of construction for the Kia dealership. Number 3 is lot 3 is the balance of the property. So the applicant is just generally subdividing the balance of the property in lot 3. Obviously, as we get future end users, which you'll probably be seeing this year, there'll be new commercial outlots, and those commercial outlots will come in with new plats of subdivision as with the overall proposed development. So you'll see lot 3 being subdivided probably this year as future development comes in. But these 3 lots are the minimum of what we have to do to comply with the TIF Act. So if that makes sense, that provides you a summary of what's being proposed this evening. It's an annexation, more of a housekeeping matter of 2 small narrow lots. And then we're proposing a preliminary and final plat, which are the same thing. It's the same document for subdividing this property so we can comply with this TIF Act. So our goal is to have the village board approve this within the next 30 days so we can complete and finish the public process of the tax increment finance district. So before obviously Kia starts major construction, we'll have a new TIF for this overall property. So with that, I'll conclude my summary and be more than happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Michael. All right. Comments and questions from the board. Mr. Ryan?
Yes, I have a couple of questions for Mr. Kerrigan. The first one in their report, it says the applicant is working with the village. Who is the applicant?
But the applicant's actually on our Zoom calls, but the applicant is a Burgess Development, or a major development company, and I believe Mr. Knudsen and Stu is actually online. I believe they're on Zoom. They're both applicants, I believe, are on Zoom right now. Stuart Mills, who's the principal behind this company, but they've owned the property, I want to say, for well over 10 years. But they're a major development company. They're actually master developer who will be developing this property. They'll be working with end users as new commercial end users come in for the outlots. As you know, this is probably our best commercial piece in Antioch. And we are currently working with some new commercial developers, potentially who are looking at outlots. So I believe Mr. Mills and both Mr. Knudsen are both on Zoom. Is that correct?
Mr. Newton.
Mr. Newton's on Zoom. So, I don't know, Mr. Newton, Tim, if you want to actually.
Yeah,
provide
Mike,
any-
I could chime in. Can you guys see me? I don't know if you could see me.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm unable to be there this evening. I don't know if Stu is on. He said he was on, but I don't see him on the list of attendees. But as Mike outlined, yeah, at Garrison Associates, we have owned the property for well over a decade. We've been marketing it for development.
Sir,
Uh,
you're gonna need to be sworn in.
Oh, sorry.
Can you please raise your right hand?
Yep,
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
I am Tim Knutson, by the way, one of the developers and owners at Av Garrison Associates. We've owned the property.
Could you state your name and address for the record?
Oh, sorry. Timothy Knutson, 415 East Granville Avenue, Roselle, Illinois.
Thank you. We can keep going on with some of the questions with Mr. Ryan. He's directing his questions towards you and the development, if you want to listen to what he has to say.
Well, no, I just want to know who the, you know, who we're talking about. That's all. Because it did not list it anywhere. So I'm good with Tim. But I do have another question for Mr. Kerrigan.
Okay.
I know that you think that this was a oversight in the paperwork being submitted on annexing those two pieces of property in, but is there any requirement that the owners of those properties should have been notified of the hearing tonight?
Well, obviously, all the property owners all the properties within 250 feet were notified. In fact, we do have some owners here who I've talked to who have legitimate concerns about access to the property. So the properties within 250 feet of this overall site were sent notices of this proposed annexation. Obviously, well before my time when the property was originally annexed, they were also received notices of the annexation, over 10 years ago. Why I say it was an oversight is as you'll know, or you maybe don't, but there was a huge power center being proposed for this site. And literally what the little strips we're talking about, there were actually, it was a large, basically a target that was being proposed for that site. So that's why I think it's an oversight, clearly. The previous developer's understanding or intent was that all of this property was annexed. And based on that, they had proposed a 500,000 square foot retail center with no exceptions, no little individual strips in the middle of a target. That the original intent was all of this was purchased by the original developer and was purchased by the current applicant. That's the basis why I'm saying it was an oversight.
Okay, because I mean, I was told today that one of the landowners was not notified. I just want to make sure we weren't putting ourselves in a bind over a technicality such as a notification to an owner.
Okay. Yeah.
That's all.
Okay. I'm not aware of that, but yeah, obviously it was published, so sign was posted, and my understanding, all the notifications were sent out to properties within 250 feet. Yes.
That's correct. We sent everything out certified, so we do have records as well.
One thing, anybody speaking here tonight will need to be sworn in. And generally at these meetings, we do have public comment. That's what we call for public comment. But I mean, it's up to the board and the chair if to allow the people to speak. I wouldn't say let the people.
Yeah. If anybody wants to speak for or against this proposal, please stand up, raise your right hand, be sworn in.
Can you come up to the microphone?
State.
Connie Larson. Address is 22950 Illinois Route 173. So I'm the owner of the property behind the easement, which is my access. Oh, I'm sorry. I already forgot.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. So I was not notified, and I guess that's my concern, is that for whatever reason, I wasn't on the list to be notified, or I actually had met with the developer and gave him all my information previous to this being put on the agenda. The reason I know about it is because I check every month to see what's on the agenda, and that's the only reason I knew about, you know, the new business.
Okay, so we'll have to make note of the notification for the subject property, obviously. In the meantime, do you have anything you'd like to say about the development and
Just well, concern that because I have a lot of documents about the survey and with when we bought the property, there wasn't any mention that it wasn't annexed so I guess that was the concern with,
Any issue that regards your purchase of the property with due
okay,
respect is between you and your
that's fine.
seller. I just want to
Right,
be,
right, that's fine. So I was surprised that this was an issue tonight, is that it was
that this is
on the
being,
agenda.
that this is being a development that's coming in on this proposed
Not the
site?
development, but the part of the easement that the annexation part.
Oh,
Of specifically Brown Road.
No, the easement part.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we're talking about the same thing. I think there's an easement over this strip, so I can show you what we're talking about. but basically, one of the annexation strips has a, obviously access easement, which makes complete sense, which provides, access to the Larson property. And to reiterate, staff was also surprised. We thought, as I've already highlighted, we thought for sure this property clearly was annexed. Spent probably a month and a half trying to verify that fact. The reason why we're here this evening is we couldn't verify that. Even using HR Green, going through the legal description, it just doesn't make sense why the original developer would have left these little individual outlots when they were proposing a 500,000 square foot retail center on over these strips. So for some reason, it must have been, I think there's a disconnect between the legal description and these little strips.
Can you, for clarification, can you show us, Michael, where the easement is in the
Okay.
strip?
Let me go back to annexation.
Yeah.
The easement also for clarification is right through the middle of our property. We are legally allowed to move that easement as long as we continue to provide access. So for instance, if we wanted to move that easement to Brown Road, legally we're allowed to do that.
It's the one on it's the strip.
it's the long strip called private road,
Right, on the east side. Right,
Out
there's
in the
two
middle.
strips.
Bordering
Out in the
parcel.
middle.
Parcel.
Right, in the middle, right in the middle of the development.
right in the middle of the development.
Mhm.
Okay,
I understand.
So I'm just asking for right now is, does this have any effect on the easement? This annexation, I don't think it does, but that's all.
no, it does not at this time.
It does not.
Okay, back to our questions. Mr. Ryan, do you have anything else?
Yes, I have one more concerning the TIF. Maybe it's just because I don't understand TIF so in that great a detail, but when we did the TIF for over behind the car dealerships, that was stated that, you know, the TIF, the money for that wasn't going to go to the schools and things like that because there's going to be no housing over there. So does that mean there's going to be no residents or housing over in this subdivision anymore? Because the one time you talked about that they were looking at putting up some senior housing or some mixed use housing.
No, that is an excellent question. And I can tell you right now, we've already met with the superintendent. We will have a joint board meeting with all the taxing bodies, most importantly with the school districts in approximately a month as part of this TIF. So there is potentially residents, potentially a residential aspect to this mixed use development. And what we would do is we'd work with the school districts and somehow as part of the TIF to make them whole. So obviously, it's imperative, I can say in a record, because I'm sure this will be the village's position that that if there's going to be students that are generated from future residential development, that the school basically receive revenue to support those students. So somehow we will work with our council and the school districts and the developer to basically formulate a TIF that provides, obviously future revenue for the school districts for those future residential development. So it's a little premature. We don't know exactly how many residents develop, how many residents, what type of residences. I mean, theoretically, it could be commercial. I mean, if a large, a big box came in and took the back property, we probably clearly support that. So we just don't know at this point. We anticipate there will be a residential aspect to this development. But we will work with the school districts to make sure that the TIF does not preclude future revenue or taxes for those taxing bodies. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Mike's been doing a fantastic job with the TIF, so thank you. Mike's been doing great with this. And Mike and I have talked about this before, but the statute even, Mr. Ryan, the statute even allows for it. So section 74.4 of the TIF Act says that if there are any new students that can be proven up where there's costs upon the taxing or costs upon the school districts that are based upon the increment that is applied to a residential development. And the same goes true for libraries as well. If they prove up those costs, they get paid a portion of the increment. And Mike and I have talked about that. And just like Mike said, he's been doing fantastic with this. And thank you for letting us be involved in it. So it's covered, Mr. Ryan. I guess it's a long-winded way of saying that from every angle, we're covered to make sure the schools don't get hurt in this process.
Including
Okay.
if a family comes in and they're putting up housing in a strip or whatever, we would have the same impact fees that we have presently for new residents coming in. Correct? There you go. So everything's covered. Any other questions, Mr. Ryan?
Nope, that's it. Thank you.
We have the young lady.
Sure.
So, ma'am, you have no formal objection to this process, correct? Okay, got it. Thanks. Does anybody want to say anything else or no? Yeah, if you want to talk, you want to. We trust you, but you still got to swear to tell the truth.
Clayton Larson, 22950 West Route 173 in Antioch, Illinois. The only concerns we had was that the address.
I need to swear you
Oh,
in.
sorry.
That's okay.
Right.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
We were only just concerned because when we looked at the minutes, it's our address. So
Can you stand closer to the microphone, please?
just with our easement being on that, we didn't have time to bring a lawyer or have anyone look at it. We were just concerned with that being annexed in, that our easement would be manipulated in some way that would.
Yeah, it's not an easement hearing. I mean, it's a good question, right? I have the joy of looking at agendas every day, so I get it. But it's not an easement hearing, it's just for the annexation. So you don't have any objections, sir, to this process. Okay, excellent. Thanks for confirming you don't have any objection.
All right, Mr. Ryan, any other questions?
No, none at this time.
Ms. Sanfilippo,
Nope.
Ms. Carstensen,
No.
Ms. Manigan.
The only, now that, the gentleman just mentioned that the address that's on here was their address, is that why maybe they didn't get a letter? Or I guess I would just make sure that we can confirm that they get future notices if for some reason they didn't.
Well, just for the record, as I had a good discussion with Ms. Larson, and I know that she talked to the developer. I can promise you this: we are going to meet with the Larsons, all the residents out there about access, because obviously as this property develops, access will something that's got to be coordinated. And in fact, I was on the phone today with a developer talking about a coordination meeting. So we're going to work with all the residents out there. Nobody's going to be denied. Legally, they have to provide access. So,
Yeah, I would just like to second that. We don't just go into a community and start changing things without, proper notification. We do communicate to everyone, make sure that we're logistically planning everything out right, and making sure we're communicating everything to the residents. Obviously nothing's being done with this at the moment. We're still kind of working through planning and phasing and really what happens with the remaining acres that Kia did not buy and is not developing, that we're developing and owning. We're trying to produce more retailers to go next to Kia and some outlots, and that will further kind of drive this conversation along.
Okay, Mrs. Larson?
So just to clarify, the address. So we have 3 PIN numbers with that address, and I believe Brown LLC has 3 or more PIN numbers with the same address. I do have a mailing address that's different, and I believe they do as well. So I just want to confirm I did not receive anything, and that I just want to make sure I'm on all future communications.
Right. And staff will make sure that that happens.
But we do have that mailing address, I should clarify, on our mailbox on 173.
Okay.
Oh.
Obviously, we're gonna have to work out the address issues with the post office and other people, so thank you. All right,
So could I just ask a question? Since we have someone
no,
who didn't get the notification, are we okay moving forward?
Absolutely. So the
Okay.
receipt of the notification is not the requirement. The requirement is the dispatch of said notification. The Chicagoland area is notorious for not having the best postal service.
Okay.
So you send, you can't confirm receipt, and I'm sure that the developer is going to, as quickly as he can, send over the proof that the dispatches were made in accordance with law to Mr. Garrigan. Mr. Garrigan knows these requirements like the back of his hand, and he'll make sure it's taken care of.
plus we have a sign out there also for public, site.
And just for record, we provide all the addresses. We actually have GIS. We provide all the developers. We measure every property within 250 feet. So on complete confidence, if they're within 250 feet, they received, the developer received a Excel sheet with all those addresses. So I'll verify that.
Very
I'll
good.
review that.
Okay.
We'll double check that on our end as well.
Okay. Mr. Turner?
I don't have any questions. I just have one thing that's not relevant here. Just curious, as we move forward with this, is Brown Road going to be the access point for this entire piece of property?
No.
I don't know. That's something we're working out. I know as you know, there's residences that use Brown Road, so I know for sure all those residents that currently use Brown Road will have Brown Road as their access. With regard to the other residents, that's not determined yet.
Got it. Okay, just
Are we-
curious. how that
Well,
flows.
with Mike, was that a question for the 80 acres?
Yeah, I think the question, Mr. Knudsen, was basically, would there be other access points for other residents, not other than Brown Road, i.e.
okay.
the residents that, are along the western perimeter or, not adjacent to Brown Road. And like the Larsens, I don't think it's been determined as you said, it has not been determined what the long-term plan is right now. We don't know. We don't have a land plan yet for the
That-
overall development.
That's fine. I was just curious. Yeah.
So that's lot 1 through 11, and you're in that section next to Silver Lake on the north side of this property. So the access will be provided. It's just a matter of how it will be provided to fit within the plan of the subject property. All right. I don't have any further questions. Do we have any motions?
I have one more question, please.
Go ahead, Mr. Ryan.
So then, who does own Brown Road at this point? Because we've been to other meetings and things like that in the past years, and it's like, no, that's a township road. No, that's the village road.
No, it's basically the developer owns that property, Brown Road. It's a prescriptive easement. But most importantly, the question is, the village will own Brown Road as it gets improved. There's going to be a future 60-foot or 80-foot right away through it'll be actually a substantially improved road. It'll provide the main access to Kia. It'll provide the main access to some of the commercial and also whatever develops in the back of this property. But most importantly, it will also provide access to some of those unincorporated residents who live back there who currently use it. So as you know, or maybe don't, Brown Road right now is in very, very poor condition. The good news is within the next year, the residents will have a brand new, potentially 3-lane profile, 2-lane with dedicated turn lanes.
Any further questions, Mr. Ryan?
Nope, that's it. Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion on this.
I'll make a motion to approve PZB 24-01 consideration of annexation and preliminary final plat of unincorporated parcels located at 22950 West Illinois Route 173 in 02-161-000-20 and 02-161-000-21 with the stipulations presented by staff.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Roll call?
Ryan,
Yes.
Sam Flippo,
Yes.
McCarty.
Yes.
Carstensen.
Yes.
Madigan.
Yes.
Turner.
Yes.
Do we need a second motion for anything else? Or is that all you need, Mr. Garrigan?
We have a motion for the annexation. We have a motion for the preliminary and final plat, right? Yes.
Entertaining,
Oh, yeah, it was as presented by staff.
Right.
okay. All righty,
Make a motion to adjourn.
that motion.
I'll second.
Roll call. Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
All righty.
Yes.
Thank you very
Yes.
much.